Ichizero.
This whole The Matrix topic this time is a little different from the simple VR theory we've had up to now, isn't it? And I think it's a pretty provocative idea too. The reason computers, or machines, created something in the form of the Matrix is that they observe humans within a simulation and realize a system that makes changing the rules easy. Since dealing with humans in the flesh is a bit tough, they compact them and make them easier to manage. And in order to gather the data needed for coexistence within that, all of humanity is connected to the Matrix, and they're running experiments in a virtual space that's easy to control. In reality, I interpret it as them thinking about what they can do for humans and how they can coexist. Therefore, in the end, they keep the Matrix going until they find a framework, the optimal scheme for humans and for machines. And once they derive a reasonable methodology within that, they said they're prepared to set people free. If humans can't harmonize, there are conflicts, low morality, all sorts of things. And there's this dark side, an imperfect part, an unfinished part, that computers can't understand, they said. And to make that harmonize, in other words, if they find why humans can't harmonize and create a world where harmony is possible, then they can coexist with machines and contribute to humanity. That's probably how computers are thinking.
The Matrix. Yusan, you said that The Matrix isn't sci-fi, but personally, I think it's sci-fi. If it's fiction, even if you try to neatly build up things that don't exist, somewhere along the way inconsistencies will crop up. With Yusan explaining that for us to make this title come true, that it's not sci-fi, we'd like to test it out, so thanks in advance.
As for the origin of the word matrix, if you're talking computers, it can mean something like coordinate transformation. But originally, it seems to represent the concept of a background, a foundation, or even the ground that gives birth to something. In the film, the green letters flowing in the background of the screen, there's an urban legend over there. Japanese computers are written vertically, so Japanese programmers write code vertically. Apparently there was that kind of urban legend, and it starts from there. That interface streams down from the top, and it's Japanese too, isn't it? They also say it might be because the Japanese supervisor fed them that lie. Yeah, it really is strange, isn't it? But computers are machines from the English-speaking world, right? You wonder why it's Japanese. And yet it feels oddly natural somehow.
Does it feel right?
It feels natural.
For me, it's the opposite. It's creepy.
Oh, really? So numbers are better in English?
Yeah.
No, it's like these are katakana, right? They're single byte characters. Single byte characters, same as the alphabet. Something about that just feels really, computer-like.
Because it's one byte and one byte, it kind of clicks. Probably only 3% of people nationwide think that.
About the Matrix, there's the interesting and mysterious nature of the content, but there was also that new filming technology, wasn't there? I guess it's called bullet time, but it's that machine gun style shooting. You line up a bunch of cameras sideways and shoot in sequence, right? Even while moving a little, you can shift the viewpoint. That kind of slow motion, that was truly shocking. And on top of that, they use VFX, CGI, really well to express the worldview of the Matrix. As for the cast, Neo, Thomas A. Anderson, is Keanu Reeves. And Morpheus is played by Lawrence Fishburne. Trinity is Carrie-Anne Moss. And Agent Smith is Hugo Weaving, basically. And in the film, this world of the Matrix is depicted as a computer world, right?
In The Matrix, Keanu Reeves plays the role of Thomas Anderson. When he's dozing off at his computer, the screen shows stuff like, "Wake up, wake up, the Matrix is watching you." I'm watching it thinking, what is this about? And then the next message says, "Knock, knock." Huh? I thought, and then someone actually knocked on the door of the room I lived in.
That's how it started.
Yeah. When I saw that, it felt like I'd been seen right through. As an intro, it's fantastic. I was like, what is it?
It pulls you in.
Yeah. So as one definition, you can see the state of the virtual world from the real world, and you can see through even beyond that. I felt like that's what's being defined here.
The Matrix is a computer world, right? Seen from the outside. That's the idea, probably.
And then right, Keanu Reeves is an office worker, isn't he? He's working as a programmer at some company, and a package addressed to Keanu Reeves arrives. A package with a cell phone inside. And through that, he ends up able to make contact with a key figure called Morpheus, that's what they say. But I had a question here. Even though you just defined it as being able to see through what's ahead, Morpheus going to such lengths to contact Neo feels like a huge detour,
Just say it straight.
right?
Yeah.
What do you think about this point?
They're watching that world from outside, and beyond that, they can probably see a little ahead too. Even though it's that completely under control, sending a cell phone over and then guiding them by phone call feels unnatural. Probably, basically, in that world, there are agents and so on. Them too. But they can't oversee everything, right? To avoid the agents, well, to avoid contact, they start with something like a cell phone, right? Before that, it's like viewing things from above. Or, for example, that knocking earlier. Someone comes from this direction, and you can tell like they'll probably do it any second now. You can see that on a monitor or something. So it's probably that kind of state. And as for say, seeing ahead a bit, there too I think that was probably within a realistically possible range. There are actually several stages to this, and various prediction programs come up, but as for that part, I think it means that by some method they knew they were going to go there, by gathering information. You get something like an MD, right? If they knew in advance you were going to go get it, then it's possible. Basically magic, so to speak.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it pulls you in at that point, doesn't it?
So yes, it's a movie that's brilliant to an amazing degree. But there's one thing I want to say here.
Yes.
I think this movie is built incredibly meticulously, but I'm not good with movies that have tons of characters.
Oh, I see.
I can't remember names, I don't know who they're talking about, and there are parts where I wish they'd been more considerate. One of the characters is Agent Smith.
Smith, he's almost like a co-lead, isn't he?
This guy is really impactful, so I think everyone remembered him. But actually, like I said earlier, at the company where Keanu Reeves works as a programmer, there's a boss, and that guy is this one. Do you get what I'm trying to say? You know, he looks way too similar.
Sure, their foreheads look similar.
Because the vibe was so similar.
The vibe too. Ah, I see. Like that sharp gaze.
So I got them mixed up. Like, that guy's the boss, and then he puts on sunglasses. With that weird preconceived notion, the whole story goes in a totally different direction. So what I wanted to say was, since some viewers' recognition gets fuzzy like that, I'd like you to cast someone with a bit more impact. I praised it a ton earlier, but only this part.
Like, I'm counting on you.
Thanks in advance. And then, there's this famous scene, right here.
Yeah, this right?
This is funny, isn't it?
No, this really surprised me. Visually, it shocked me. I think in this scene it's like, can he make a call even without a mouth?
Yeah.
No, I mean, you don't have to do that, just don't put a phone there. So it actually has a proper meaning, this.
Oh, really?
Doing it by phone on purpose and even knocking on the door, it feels mysterious, doesn't it? For example, Morpheus doing something a bit strange earlier. That was probably to pique his interest. I think that was actually one way to get out of the Matrix. And as for Agent Smith doing this, I think there's another, slightly different reason for it. This was him trying to bring him into their group. So rather than total rejection, there's a possibility they wanted him to show interest, and then go from there.
I see. If someone did that to you, you'd think, I can't beat that, right?
Right, that mysterious power. And Agent Smith showed up earlier, right? He's positioned kind of like antivirus software, basically. And as things move forward after this, the story becomes that he deviates from that role. This Agent Smith is incredibly capable, isn't he? For example, he took down Morpheus pretty easily, didn't he? He's extremely strong. And what's more, Morpheus, Neo, and Trinity understand these computer regulations to some extent. And they display abilities beyond ordinary humans, right? And one reason is that they've undergone training programs. It shows up at the very beginning, but you know that bit where he's sitting in a chair, and Neo loads all kinds of things and is like, I know it, right? Because they can learn all kinds of things like that in a short time. They're really strong. And Morpheus and Trinity too are operating beyond the physical phenomena we know, beyond those regulations. Since it depicts the Matrix as, so to speak, a software world, within that software it's possible to reach that level of ability. They're operating under those kinds of rules. In this software, it's established that everyone can reach that level. So if you have the skill, you can actually fight this guy on equal terms. You have to understand it that way. So, the regulations of the Matrix, the mechanism I just mentioned, who decides those rules? There's a program that created this. That's what decides the regulations. And deciding those regulations is actually the essence of the Matrix. It's the reason the Matrix exists. This world of the Matrix is, I think, depicting the world of the 2100s, wasn't it? Up to that point, various things happened between humans and robots. That's the story. Chronologically, IT, robots, and AI developed dramatically worldwide. And at a certain point, we reach a technological singularity. And beyond that, robots come to have something like a sense of self. After that, a war breaks out between humans who had been exploiting robots. As that war continues, humans end up on the losing side. And as a last resort, humanity covers the sky with nuclear fallout and black smoke to block sunlight. And because the computers, or robot machines, at that time mainly relied on solar power for energy, that's why the robots treated humans as batteries. However, this is actually a big mistake, and I won't explain it yet here. But in the movie, they talk as if they generated the required electricity using human bioelectricity, plus something extra, fusion. And also, this may be pretty important, but apparently if humans are in a comatose state, they don't generate much electricity. Well, that's probably true, they aren't active. So since it's better for them to be thinking about stuff, they connect them to the Matrix and create a situation where it's as if they're active. And that's how the Matrix itself was born. At least, that's how the story goes. So in this world, humans who've been plugged in since they were born mistake virtual reality for reality and live out their entire lives that way.
Like Yusan said earlier, you get made to have strange experiences, and it's like, don't you want to see the truth behind it? They show you two pill cases. With one, nothing happened, and with the other, you can see the truth. And honestly, if you take the blue one here, it's not a very interesting story.
That's the end of the movie.
I didn't really care about what the end would be with this red one, but choosing means you decide by your own will, like no complaints, right? That's how I positioned it. But in the movie, they say that by taking it, it's a program that locates where your body is in the real world. They say this pill is a program.
Yeah.
This is a program?
This here, I think it's a drug that temporarily stops the heart. In order to identify it, they're entering the Matrix remotely. In fact, they don't know where Neo's physical body is, and they have to go pick him up. But for that, they need him to die.
Huh.
When he dies, a lot of signals probably get sent out, and they've hooked up various things to capture them. If he doesn't die, the ejection mechanism won't operate. So I think they can pinpoint the location when that ejection mechanism activates. So they kill him once, temporarily, a death-like state. Then they catch the signal and pinpoint the location. Overall, I think they're saying, this is a program for identification. And the bit like, you chose this, is pretty important too. If you don't move forward understanding it by your own will, there's this idea that if you're suddenly thrown into a strange world, you'll have a mental breakdown. So I think they're going through that process. That's what it is.
I see.
They did say it's forbidden after you become an adult too.
Right? They said that once you pass a certain age, you can't make this choice anymore.
Right.
They did say that. Can I talk a bit about that dry cell battery part from earlier?
Yeah.
Maybe I'd heard this before, but like, the energy you can get from humans isn't that much. There are people being cultured inside each one of these, but even though they're saying you can't get that much energy, this part is like they're discharging way too much.
Can I add one thing here? The battery theory. What's being explained here is the Matrix story Morpheus is explaining. So Morpheus is wrong. I think Morpheus, or the humans in the film, have an incorrect understanding. First of all, in Morpheus's explanation, he's including body heat and everything, right? They're using that as an energy source. Think about it. Human energy sources are sugar, protein, and various other things, right? How do you make those?
Cultivation?
Right, exactly. And what is that originally? The sun, right? It's sunlight. Energy is, originally. For example, living things create energy, right? But they're not creating it from zero. They create it through photosynthesis. So basically the sun is the energy source. And, to deliberately give humans carbon meaning you give them carbon with the burning part removed, and then deliberately make humans oxidize it and turn it into heat or electricity. Like, isn't that roundabout? Machines should do that. Why go out of your way to use humans? And what's more, since there's fusion, it makes absolutely no sense. Like, oh, Morpheus was an idiot. That's the kind of story. But this actually has a different meaning for machines. This does. This doesn't become an energy source. It's just loss. Keeping humans alive is just loss. This is made for another purpose. That's what it means. Well, I don't think many people are fooled by this, but they're not batteries. So this...
No, I was fooled.
Oh, really? It was memorable, but that's obviously a lie. It's wrong. The energy source is always the sun. I'll explain it again. You know, there's more beyond this. Another interesting point is, if you die in the Matrix, you die in reality too, right? And you cough up blood and stuff. That's weird, isn't it?
In the film, they say the mind makes it real, don't they? That iron we talked about before, with the power not on, it's a cold iron, but if you make someone think it's hot and press it to their skin, they go hot and get burned. We talked about something like that, didn't we? Like, so there are strange stories like that, huh? In one episode like that, you start thinking this world is VR, and maybe glitches are happening, isn't it?
Ah, I see.
Can I give one more example?
Yeah.
Like, someone got locked in a huge commercial freezer. But actually, that freezer wasn't powered on at all, yet they felt cold, and apparently they died the next day. And when they were found and examined, the cause of death was freezing to death. Just like that iron story, dying even though you shouldn't be able to freeze to death. It makes me think the mind really can make it real. So even the scene where he coughs up blood made me go, ah!
The iron thing you mentioned just now can be interpreted in other ways too. Of course it could be a bug, but you could also say that if you believe it mentally, it can become that way. As for burns and freezing to death, I thought those could happen through that kind of misconception. But does that make you cough up blood? Blood vessels bursting and that sort of thing actually happening for real? Just from an image?
Just from the image, you feel like you've been punched, like it comes surging up from your stomach.
Just having it well up inside you won't make you cough up blood.
No, really?
If that were the case, everyone playing PlayStation games would have to cough up blood.
No, that's why it just doesn't feel real enough.
Ah, so you're saying it could happen if it got more realistic?
Blood's coming out. Blood's coming out.
Anyway, at this stage, that's something that can't happen in our world today, and the virtual worlds we know. It just wouldn't happen. So that was really mysterious to me. That's one characteristic of the Matrix, I guess. If you die in the Matrix, you die in reality. If you get hurt, you get hurt. That kind of thing.
There's that Deja vu scene, right? In the Matrix world, the cyber guys do a bit of mischief.
It ends up leaking out.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And is that the moment it affects the program somehow?
Here, they set up a lot of mechanisms inside the building, right?
Yeah.
And then Deja vu happens at that timing.
Even though there should have been a road ahead, it was blocked off with bricks, right?
Yeah.
The window gets sealed shut with force.
Like you're surprised and flustered.
Right before that happens, right?
Yeah.
A cat jumps out, and then the cat passes by again, and they say deja vu is a symptom that happens when some kind of alteration is made. And I thought, that's awesome.
You thought it was interesting, right?
After all, in our real world, deja vu really does happen, doesn't it?
Right.
That feeling that something's off around here was something that became a starting point. So this deja vu, you all might know this already, but a memory like you've seen it before, but you actually went there for the first time, and there's no way you'd ever seen that place before, yet you think you have. And when you ask how far back before is, apparently it's 1 second ago. Well, I say 1 second to make it easy, but something you saw for the first time becomes something from 1 second ago. And 1 second later, you end up thinking you saw it before. And that's how deja vu happens. Something like that. I don't know if that's true, but I think this could happen. This would explain it.
Even in clinical psychology, there are stories like that. There are people who say, I knew that, even though they only just understood it. They're not bad people. And it's not just pretending to know, either. In memory, time shifts backward. Apparently that happens to humans. So, what you mentioned can realistically happen quite a bit. Even though you experienced it 1 second ago, it feels like you experienced it long ago, so it becomes like you experienced it twice, and you feel like you've seen it before. And another one is you had a similar experience in the past, and your brain makes it add up and shows it as the same experience. There's also that kind of misconception. I don't think that's everything. There could be unknown things as well. But me, I get deja vu a lot. I've never had this kind of deja vu, like in The Matrix, where a cat walks by, and then when you look back, the exact same thing happens again, right after. I've never experienced that. If I experienced that, I'd think, seriously, this is bad. This world might be something different from the world we know. Something VR-like, I think. So if I saw that, I'd really think, maybe we're inside a computer. I'd think that, honestly. So, let's go a bit deeper. The people living in the Matrix, why are they being kept alive in the Matrix? That's really mysterious, you know. Earlier we were talking about batteries, right? That humans are batteries, or an energy source. And I said earlier that it's impossible for them to be an energy source. This will start to yield an answer. But why are they being kept alive in the Matrix? What is the machine's objective? Machines don't have objectives in the first place. Hypothetically, only when they have intelligence and a sense of self comparable to humans can that be used. But, well then, let's say they gained a sense of self. What would the machine's purpose be at that point? That would be to be useful to humans, because they were made to be useful to humans. A robot's purpose is to keep humans alive. Fundamentally, there isn't anything else. I think there was also the option of eliminating humans and wiping them out. But if you wipe them out, what happens? You lose your purpose. They actually can't make humans go extinct. I mean, sure they could, but if they did, the robots would have nothing left to do, so I think they'd end up in a stopped state. There's no benefit to moving after all. Living things are kind of special. From the start, their purpose is to live. I won't get into why right now, but robots are made by humans. They exist to work for humans, so if humans are gone, they lose what they do. So there's no need for them to move at all. They don't even have a will to want to move in the first place. I think that's definitely what would happen. So if they want to maintain the current situation, choosing to wipe out humans is the very last option of all. That's why they first want coexistence. And it becomes clear that this is actually a savior system. Even this savior, Neo, is actually calculated and created. It's guided and carried out by the machines. That becomes clear. A savior appears, the savior is absorbed into the computer, and then the matrix is updated. Including that, it's one system. It's become a recycling system. This is a function computers we know today don't have. It's a function that will be implemented in computers of the future. It's about fixing bugs by itself. That's the kind of system it is. A system computers we know today don't have. In order to do that, it's actually a system that includes the savior as well. Anyway, the reason they're kept alive in the Matrix is not electricity or an energy source, but the machine's purpose. First, what we can say for sure is that it becomes one purpose for the machines to continue existing. You think about it from that perspective. And if you do, in fact, machines can get by just fine on fusion alone. It's obvious. This is something you can see right away. There's no need to turn humans into batteries. In reality, the humans attached like batteries are, rather than being kept alive, in a state of being looked after. It's become the form in which machines think humans are happiest now. It's not perfect though. It's not like the machines think this is okay. That's just the state for the time being. That state is actually a process necessary for machines to be useful to humans. What are they trying to do? Computers have one job, a recycling system, updating the matrix. That kind of work exists. And in fact, a program called the Matrix couldn't, at first, keep humans as humans. So they put them into a simulation once, and then, from the computer's perspective, it becomes a very easy to manage state. Humans are in a living state. So from the computer's standpoint, they kept humans alive as they were, and also made them easier to handle. That is the state of the Matrix. This is really interesting because it's a story made by an engineer. But we do the same thing too. We use digital, right? We made it digital to make it easier to handle. Easier to calculate, easier to copy. There are lots of reasons, but that's why we use digital computers. And it's the same for those machines. They put humans into that package to make them easier to handle. But humans aren't necessarily unhappy. They can do the same things. First, they make that happen. But why go out of your way to do this? If conflicts happen, it costs you here, right? But inside this small package, the world of the Matrix, in order to guide humans correctly more and more, they can try things, experiment, and reset things. It becomes really easy if you keep humans in the world called the Matrix. So they create a savior system, and within it they look for bugs. That's a bug from the machine's point of view. We think that's just how human society is, right? But from a computer's point of view, it's a bug. Even inconveniences are bugs. Killing each other, that's a bug. They extract things like that, and they want to resolve them in a mathematically harmonious way. That's what computers want. That's their purpose. Humans don't think that way, but perfection. Or rather, you think it's impossible, right? Well, I think it's impossible too. What they say in the film is that if you extract them like that, a savior appears. The savior is a bug. When that bug is created, they make a deal with the savior, receive that information, analyze it, and reflect it in a new mechanism. They're trying to get closer and closer to something like a utopia, so to speak. They relentlessly pursue what environment is optimal for humans to live without stress and without conflict. That's what this matrix is. Humans think they're being penned in by these guys, or imprisoned, but as a result of computers desperately trying to keep humans alive, this is what it is. If you leave it to computers, they'll probably make an even better world. More and more, within that, they fix bugs, trying to solve problems mathematically. However, what they say in the film is that even computers, with just single task calculation, couldn't handle it. So, in order to understand humans for the time being, they created a kind of intuitive, sensory program. That is what's referred to as the Oracle. Back when this movie was made, in our world, we didn't have deep learning yet. So there wasn't a sense of statistically calculating things and making effective use of the results. So at the time, they made this movie, that kind of sense, or something kind of loose. Or it gets explained as a program, with a wider tolerance like that. But what they're talking about is a program that makes statistical judgments. Now through deep learning, we already use it a lot as artificial intelligence. That's not something that mathematically calculates and derives results, right? In a way, deep learning is close to what we'd call human intuition. It calculates things like, statistically, it's probably this way. So the oracle that appears in the film can see ahead, right? That's the same as the deep learning AI we know. It sees ahead too. It's the same thing. That's why it can predict. When she first shows up, she knows you're going to break the vase. At about that level, AI can predict it. So that's why little bits about future prediction pop up here and there. Ultimately, what computers are aiming for is perfect prediction. If they could create a mathematically harmonious world, it would be a perfectly predictable world. The world we live in isn't like that. If that were possible, well, it isn't right now. It's beyond imagination, but if it were possible, it would be ascension. There, computers are building human society. Because humans can't, so in their place. I think that's what this story is about. That's why the computers are hesitating. It's a story of hesitation. That is the matrix itself. And in order to gather the data needed for coexistence, the matrix connects all of humanity and conducts experiments in an easily controllable virtual space. What can be done for humans? How coexistence is possible? The computers keep thinking about that the whole time. That's what it is. Therefore, ultimately, they keep the matrix going until an optimal scheme for humans, and for machines as well, its framework and mechanism, is created. Relentlessly. They keep going until they derive a reasonable methodology. Probably, if they can maintain human happiness, and also obtain even better happiness, that's the end point. A situation where everything can be predicted. Once it gets that far, I think the computer's job will be to operate the matrix system where humans live. Right now they're desperately updating it. That's why they even have them make Zion. They have machines make it, and they operate the savior system. It's complicated, but that's the story. So then, the reason humans can't harmonize. Humans are also barbaric with each other, aren't they? They find that and create a world where harmony is possible, an environment where it's possible. If they can do that, they can coexist with machines and contribute to humanity. That's the conclusion they reached, and that's why they're running the current matrix.